Hello everyone, and welcome back to Talk Helen. I'm Helen, and today we're talking about something that every English learner wants. Not better grammar, not a bigger vocabulary, not a perfect accent. Something much more important, confidence. And before we begin, let me welcome today's guest. Joining me today is Ryan. Ryan, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Helen. And honestly, I think confidence is the one thing every learner wishes they had more of.
Absolutely. Because think about it. You can know thousands of English words. You can understand movies. You can pass exams. You can read books. But if you don't feel confident speaking, none of that knowledge feels useful. And that's why today's topic is so important, because we're talking about the confidence trick fluent speakers use. And here's something that might surprise you. Most fluent speakers are not as confident as you think.
Really? Because they certainly look confident.
Exactly. They look confident, but that's very different. And that's the first secret I want everyone listening to understand. Fluent speakers don't wait until they feel confident. They speak before confidence arrives. Let me say that again, because this idea changed my entire understanding of language learning. Fluent speakers do not wait until they feel confident. They speak anyway. And that's the trick. That's the secret. That's the thing most learners misunderstand. Many learners have this plan. First, I'll become confident. Then I'll start speaking. But confidence doesn't work that way. Confidence comes after action, not before. Imagine learning to swim. Would you become confident before entering the water? Of course not. You become confident because you enter the water repeatedly. The same thing happens with English. Confidence is not a prerequisite. It's a result. And that's where many learners get stuck. They're waiting for a feeling that only appears after practice. Now let me ask you something, Ryan. Have you ever met somebody whose English wasn't perfect, but they still sounded confident?
Actually, yes. Many times.
And have you ever met somebody with excellent English who sounded nervous?
Definitely.
Exactly. Because confidence and skill are not the same thing. And that's one of the biggest lessons learners need to hear. Sometimes people think, if I improve my English, confidence will automatically appear. Sometimes it does. But often confidence comes from something else. A different mindset, a different relationship with mistakes, a different way of thinking about conversations. Now, here's the confidence trick fluent speakers use. And honestly, it's incredibly simple. They give themselves permission to be imperfect. That's it. That's the trick. They don't expect perfect grammar. They don't expect perfect pronunciation. They don't expect perfect vocabulary. They simply focus on communication. And that changes everything. Imagine two learners. The first learner thinks, I must speak perfectly. The second learner thinks, I just want to communicate. Who do you think feels more confident? Usually, the second one. Because perfection creates pressure. Communication creates freedom.
That makes a lot of sense. Perfection can be paralyzing.
Now, let's imagine a real conversation. Someone asks, what did you do this weekend? The perfectionist immediately feels pressure. They start searching, analyzing, editing, checking grammar, checking vocabulary, checking pronunciation. Meanwhile, the conversation keeps moving. The confident speaker simply answers, "I spent most of the weekend with friends." Done. Maybe it's not perfect. Maybe there's a small mistake. But communication happened, and communication builds confidence. Now here's something fascinating. Fluent speakers often make mistakes. Lots of them.
I think that surprises many learners.
It really does, because learners imagine fluent speakers as perfect speakers. But real life doesn't work that way. Even native speakers make mistakes. They forget words, they restart sentences, they mispronounce things. They use incorrect grammar sometimes. They change direction halfway through a sentence. The difference is simple. They don't panic. They keep talking. And that's the confidence trick. Not avoiding mistakes. Continuing despite mistakes. Now here's another thing fluent speakers do. They trust themselves. Even when they're uncertain. Think about that. Many learners don't trust themselves. Every sentence feels dangerous. Every conversation feels like an exam. Every mistake feels huge. But fluent speakers think differently. They think, "I'll figure it out." That's a powerful mindset. I'll figure it out. Maybe they don't know the perfect word. They'll describe it. Maybe they forget vocabulary. They'll use another expression. Maybe they make a mistake. They'll continue anyway. That's confidence, not certainty. Adaptability.
That's such a useful mindset to have. It lowers the pressure immediately.
Now let's talk about something I see all the time. A learner starts speaking, then stops, then apologizes, then starts again, then apologizes again, then starts again. And after 30 seconds, they've apologized 5 times.
I've definitely seen that happen.
Many learners do it because they're terrified of making mistakes. But here's something interesting. Most listeners didn't even notice the mistake. The speaker noticed it. The listener didn't. And that's another confidence secret. Fluent speakers understand that people care far less about their mistakes than they imagine. Think about the last conversation you had. Were you analyzing every tiny mistake the other person made? Probably not. You were focused on the message. And most people do exactly the same thing. They're trying to understand you, not evaluate you.
That really changes how you think about conversations. It takes away some anxiety.
Now here's another confidence trick. Fluent speakers focus on what they know, not what they don't know. This sounds simple, but it's incredibly powerful. Imagine you're having a conversation. You know 95% of the vocabulary you need, but you don't know one word. Many learners become obsessed with that one missing word. Their confidence collapses. They feel stuck. Fluent speakers focus on the 95%. They use what they have, and they keep moving. That's a huge difference. Now let's imagine you forget the word, helmet. Many learners freeze. Fluent speakers say the thing people wear on their heads when riding motorcycles. Problem solved. Communication continues. Confidence remains. Because confidence comes from flexibility, not perfection.
That's a great practical example. It's so liberating to know you don't have to stop the whole conversation for one word.
Now, here's another thing fluent speakers understand. Silence is not failure. Many learners panic whenever they pause. 3 seconds of silence feels like a disaster, but native speakers pause constantly. They think, reflect, search for words, organize ideas. Pausing is normal. Human beings pause. The problem isn't the pause. The problem is what learners think the pause means. They think, I'm failing. No, you're thinking, that's different. And once you stop fearing pauses, speaking becomes much easier.
I think that's reassuring for a lot of people. Silence doesn't mean you don't know English.
Now let's talk about another powerful confidence habit. Fluent speakers celebrate communication wins. Learners often celebrate perfection. Imagine you have a 10-minute English conversation. You successfully communicate. You understand each other. Everything goes well. But you make 2 small mistakes. What do many learners remember? The mistakes, not the success. And that's a problem, because confidence grows from evidence. If you constantly focus on failures, your confidence shrinks. If you notice successes, your confidence grows. Now here's a challenge. After your next English conversation, ask yourself, what did I do well? Not, what mistakes did I make? Ask, what did I communicate successfully? Maybe you told a story. Maybe you asked questions. Maybe you understood someone. Maybe you expressed an opinion. Those things matter, and noticing them changes your mindset.
That shift in focus could really help learners stay motivated.
Now, let's talk about one of the biggest myths in language learning. The myth that confident speakers never feel nervous. That's completely false. Many fluent speakers still feel nervous. Before presentations, before interviews, before important conversations. The difference is that they speak anyway. That's the confidence trick. They don't wait for fear to disappear. They move forward despite fear. And, honestly, that's what confidence really is. Not the absence of fear. The ability to act despite fear. Now imagine 2 people standing at the edge of a diving board. One person feels scared and climbs down. The other person feels scared and jumps. Which one becomes more confident over time? The jumper. Not because they felt less fear, because they acted despite fear. English works exactly the same way. Every conversation is a small jump, and every jump builds confidence.
That's such a relatable image. It's about action, not waiting for nerves to go away.
Now here's another thing fluent speakers do. They stop comparing themselves to native speakers. This is huge, because comparison destroys confidence. Imagine learning basketball and comparing yourself to a professional player every day. How would you feel? Probably terrible. Yet learners do this constantly. They compare their English to people who've spoken English for 30 years. That's not fair, that's not realistic, and it's not helpful. Fluent learners compare themselves to their past selves, not other people. They ask, am I better than 6 months ago? Am I better than last year? That's the comparison that matters.
That's such an important message. Progress is personal, not competitive.
Now, here's another confidence trick. Fluent speakers expect mistakes. Think about that. They expect mistakes, which means mistakes don't shock them. Many learners expect perfection, so every mistake feels like a crisis. Fluent speakers think, of course I'll make mistakes. It's part of speaking. And because they expect mistakes, they recover faster. Now, imagine a child learning to walk. The child falls, gets up, falls, gets up, falls again. Nobody says, "Well, I guess walking isn't for me." Yet adults often treat English that way. One mistake, and suddenly they question everything. But language learning works exactly like walking. Progress requires mistakes. Growth requires mistakes. Confidence requires mistakes, because every mistake teaches you something.
That's a great analogy. Mistakes are literally how you learn.
Now let's talk about another powerful idea. Confidence grows through repetition, not motivation. Many learners think, when I feel motivated, I'll practice. But motivation comes and goes. Confidence grows from consistent action. Small action, repeated action, daily action. 5 minutes of speaking every day is better than 2 hours once a month, because repetition builds familiarity, and familiarity builds confidence. Now let me ask you something, Ryan. If somebody listening right now wants more confidence, where should they start?
Honestly, probably by speaking more often, even if it's uncomfortable.
Exactly. Because confidence is earned, not granted. You earn confidence through experience. Conversation after conversation, mistake after mistake, success after success. Now, before we finish today's episode, I want everyone listening to remember one thing. The confidence trick fluent speakers use isn't magic. It's not talent. It's not personality. It's a decision. A decision to keep speaking. A decision to keep communicating. A decision to stop waiting for perfection. Because fluent speakers understand something incredibly important. Confidence is not what comes before speaking. Confidence is what comes after speaking. Every conversation builds it. Every attempt strengthens it. Every moment of courage expands it. And eventually, something amazing happens. You stop worrying so much. You stop overthinking every sentence. You stop fearing every mistake, because you've proven something to yourself. You've proven that you can communicate. You've proven that mistakes don't destroy conversations. You've proven that you can survive awkward moments. And that proof becomes confidence. Not fake confidence, not temporary confidence, real confidence. The kind that comes from experience, the kind that stays, the kind that transforms your English. And once you understand that, everything changes. Because you stop waiting and you start speaking. And that's where fluency truly begins.
That's an inspiring way to finish, Helen. Thanks for having me on the show.